So we're excited to be back with you. It's a privilege for me to be over here each year for the last, maybe 2016. And something's been going around, of a bug of some sort, so we weren't able to do it last year. And we were disappointed to see that. But we're back in action, and this is as good a lineup as we've had. All these guys, and girls too. Remember, Jarena Pillar came up, and you guys, if you can even get close to Jarena, she was amazing. And by that, this is not a performance. It's just, we want to get inside your heads. And so over these last few years, from 20 to 21, I was just kind of going on money list and doing some studying and different things. And I noticed that we have an elder statesman here that took from 2020 to 2021, increased his take-home pay that year by a factor of 7. At age 47. And Stewart, that was unbelievable. Now, Sam, so we'll call that a resurgence, right? And then we got Sam Burns to my immediate right, and Sam also, by about a factor of 7 from 2020 to 2021, you increased your, it was beautiful, take-home pay by about a factor of 7. And the other two guys, Scottie's just getting started, and both these guys are 25 years old. Scottie just getting started, doubled it from 2020 to 2021. Same with you, Russ. Factor of 2. So all of you have been surging. Nobody's going backwards in terms of what's been going on. So there's been a lot in your, and again, you guys are in the paper. You're always judged by your scores. You're judged by those things. But I want to get beyond that and say what maybe played a role in that. So for you guys, it's just, you're learning the ropes, you're learning the courses, I get that. But is there anything maybe in your golf swing, in your mental approach, in your family life, and anything that maybe it led to this resurgence in some cases, maybe for you guys that have been out there for a while, or maybe just now, just kind of learning the ropes? Russ, as you look back over the last few years, you played well and you had a great tournament, almost won this year. So what's going on? Give us a little bit of insight. We're Golf Digest readers, so give us a free Golf Digest article, please.
Yeah, I think it goes back to 2020, the start of 2020 for me. I basically I think I was one of the worst putters on tour and kind of felt like I had the yips a lot of the time. And my wife, Teal, she said, look, I was feeling really guilty because I was practicing a lot, and she said, you can just pray about it and you can go putt and work at it. And so I just remember her saying, I got the kids, I trust you, do what you need to do, work as much as you need to work. And I just kind of started really working on it, trying to figure out why I was putting so bad. Well, I knew why. I had no confidence and a lot of reasons, but that was kind of the start, and I just kind of let that bleed into the rest of my game. And I feel like this hasn't been one thing for me exactly as much as just spending a lot of time working on everything. So,
well, you're consistently tee to green up in, even top 10. It's just been amazing, your ball striking. Is there anything in your putting particularly, mechanically or just in your head or mentally, or was there something, was there like an epiphany, was there a moment? Or it's kind of like, this is really going to take me to the next level, or was this practice?
Yeah, practice, and I did some research. Actually, this last fall, I did a lot of research with my putting coach, Ramon Buscanza, and I went down to Jacksonville, and we put a lot of different putters on this, I guess it's a device called Capto. It's similar to a Sam's Putting Lab, if you've ever heard of that. And with my regular grip, my grip pressure was changing throughout the stroke, and I had a decent amount of face rotation, and my path was a little off, so a lot of bad factors. When I tried the claw in my right hand, my grip pressure didn't change, my path got better, and there's very little face rotation. So since I made that change, it's been a lot better. And at first I wasn't going to do it, but actually my brother-in-law, who's my best friend, was like, look, you're not going to putt any worse. So, and I was like, you know what? I appreciate that so much. You're right, and I'm going to try it. And so I tried it, and it works better.
There's a spiritual story in that. But sometimes when it can't get any worse, all right, I'll look up, That's awesome, brother. Stuart, I mean, this has been crazy. I mean, we were talking backstage last time we were together was at San Diego Open. I don't know, we couldn't even figure out how long ago it was. And we were talking, if that was 8 or 9 years ago, I don't know what it was. We were talking about this is, getting towards the latter part of your career. Who could have could you have even fathomed? You've won 8 times on the tour, and a quarter of those have come after the age of 46. That's been done a few other times by, the VJs of the world and things, but could you have imagined, and what would you attribute that to? I mean, just anything, anywhere you want to take that. I mean, that's just awesome.
Well, I think for me it goes back to 2019 where I had an injury. And surprisingly, an injury led to something good, but like so many times in our lives, you think you're in the weeds, and it turns out, looking back, that it's like one of the best things that ever happened for you too, right? Romans 8:28, I think, says something about that. So, in 19, I had an injury and I had to miss time. First time in my career I ever had to miss any significant time because of an injury. And I worked hard with my trainer to try to figure out what was going on, and part of that was to strengthen areas that needed to be strengthened. And the net result of that was that I was more ready to make a change in my golf game where I could be a little bit more efficient, especially off the tee. And I'm a tall person, big body, and I have a big arc, but I wasn't really utilizing that to my advantage. And so my coach and I kind of saw that, and I wasn't bad. I was just, in golf, we're talking like
fractions.
Fractions. And so I was able to get my club path going a little bit more favorable towards delivering energy into the ball instead of somewhere else. It didn't matter. And I picked up about 10 or 12 yards.
Okay, now was that you talking about your trainer? So is this strength? Is this stretching? Is it a combination of both to change your path?
It's a little bit of both with the trainer. It was really mostly about getting stronger to prevent the next injury if it was ever going to happen. And what happened was I gave myself a physical platform to make a technical change and to be able to get a little bit more efficiency. Hitting up on the ball is a big thing now we've learned over the last 10 or so years since
big time, yeah.
Yeah, so I was able to increase my attack angle and take a little bit of off the driver, and I picked up about 12 yards of carry.
Which is huge. I mean, it makes a difference in big. Lines and bunkers and all that.
And it took me from like around number 100 in driving distance up to about number 30, which is
just crazy.
It's a big deal. If you equate, strokes gained is a big thing, and I know it's a real boring topic to most everybody here, but every 10 yards is basically about half a stroke. You're a half a stroke better golfer per round if you can hit it 10 yards further. And that basically... Now,
did you lengthen your driver or anything, or was it just...
Do what now?
Did you change equipment like lengthening the driver at all?
No.
Did you go down that road at all, or just...
No.
So was it bigger wind-up?
Yeah, I would say a little bit bigger load.
Bigger
just a little bit more of everything I was already doing. But
Gotcha.
My body, the key was that I was ready to. Before, I wasn't ready to, and then I got ready to be able to do that, so that I was able to do it and to sustain it for a long time.
So was it a quick jump? Was it kind of linear? Was it just a little bit, 2 miles an hour, mile an hour, and then another few months? Or
I'd say it happened over the span of about 30 seconds.
Really? No, seriously.
No, really. My coach identified, like, you're just not really very efficient right now. Look at this club head direction, the angle, the loft, the spin, the shape of the shot. You don't have to have a launch monitor to figure some of that stuff out. And he said, try this. And so he told me basically 2 things to do. I want you to move the ball position forward. And I literally felt like a clown as far as the ball position was forward, because I'd been real cozy with it back.
Right, yeah.
And I kept saying, like, this far? He's like, no, more. This far? More. This far? And I felt like a clown.
So you felt like it was way out here.
Yeah, and of course he took a picture and showed it and said, here's what it looks like, and it looked like every good golfer that I know, like him and him and him. And so that's one thing, and the other thing was to load more into my right side, like I was going to throw a medicine ball through a wall, and really load into my right side. And so both of those things just helped me keep the club face square longer and travel faster and catch the ball at a better place in the arc, and the ball just started going like a lot farther.
So I played a couple of days ago with Steve Lowry, and he is teeing the ball like, I think the max length on a tee is 4 inches. This is relevant for you at home, because most of you hit down on it. And what did you get? Did you get 2 up, or in terms of your angle of attack, did it change by how many degrees?
Yeah, it changed from back when I first was, well, the beginning of that 30 seconds. Before that, I was probably about like 1.5 to 2 degrees down.
Down. Okay, so what's that mean is you're catching the ball on the downswing, imparting more spin, launching it lower, which means it goes a lot shorter.
Yeah, and you need, if your driver is moving down when you make impact with the ball, you need loft to help it go in the air. And if my hand was a golf ball, this right here is not very efficient for speed, but that right there is, right? And so you can decrease the loft on the driver, and you can send the ball more out instead of up.
Right. But with your irons,
pretty basic.
You don't want to do that, because what you do is you hit a guy in the forehead in the third row. Right, Scotty? So when you hit up on an iron, you hit a guy in the forehead.
Well, I know he signed his waiver, right?
Did he at least get to keep the ball and the trophy? I mean, you should keep the ball.
Can we get another chair up here for him? I want him up here.
We're just glad you're here, sir, and we're glad you're alive. So Scotty, I mean, you've been out now for just a few years, and I mean, incredible last year, getting chosen for the Ryder Cup, which was just a huge deal. I mean, that had to be an amazing thing. Tell us about your first few years on tour. Just what are you learning? What are you learning?
I mean, I feel like I'm learning a lot. I get to bounce a lot of stuff off these guys. I'm very blessed to have, older people in my life that have done this before.
So what I want to know is your dad younger or older than the guy
He's
sitting
much
to your
older than
right?
Stewart.
Okay, he's older than Stewart. All
And
right.
I can't make fun of him too much because I think the first time we played together, he was hitting it by me. And I was but for me, like I said, it's really good to have these guys to bounce stuff off of. And getting started on tour, playing professional golf, I didn't really know what to expect. I just kind of went about it and just trusting the Lord and having faith and working as hard as I could. And for me, I feel like I'm learning constantly. I feel like I'm just getting a little bit better each day. And I wouldn't say I made too many drastic changes in my golf swing or game since I was maybe, in middle school. I think I've kind of had a coach who really just kind of helped me get a little bit better over time. And like I think Stewart touched on it a little bit, being healthy. And
People don't realize how significant that is. I mean, you're playing with an injury. It's almost impossible.
yeah, and I played through injuries for a couple years in college, and it was awful. And I spent a lot of time in the gym over the last 4 or 5 years getting healthy into where I feel really good. And I think that's something most amateurs don't realize either. They go out and just expect to go on the range and just hit balls and hit it far and swing hard and do all these things. But most amateur golfers that struggle with their swing, it's not because they lack coordination. It's because their bodies physically can't move the way that you're supposed to hit a golf
Well,
ball.
I've seen some that really do lack coordination, but still. So let me ask you a question. So, okay, a lot of people say, well, we're not going to be traveling tour. We're not going to be trying to hit the ball 300 in the air. We just want to enjoy it. But what do you give everybody a sense of what you do physically in the gym or whatever that kind of sustains you through not only travel, but through, all the balls you hit and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, pretty much every day I have the same stretching routine, whether or not I'm playing golf or not.
Does that happen early, like right when you get up kind of thing, or?
Depending on the day, but if I'm at home after a week on the road, definitely not first thing in the morning. This mornings are a little bit slower, but I have a routine. It probably takes 20-ish minutes to do every morning, and then, I mean, we spend a lot of time in the gym, probably working out 4 or 5 days a week, and just kind of trying to stay in shape for a golfer.
Yeah. But not, yeah. You guys are fit, all right? So, that's all he's just show muscle, right? Okay. So thanks, Scotty. So Sam, this has been a big last 12 months for you. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, you had Valspar, you had Sanderson Farms, 2 big wins. Congrats, man. That is awesome. I had never met you. I was pulling hard for you. I really was pulling hard for you. I loved the way that you talked about your king at the end was powerful. Some things you've learned. I mean, over these last few years, you had a good career on Korn Ferry. You got out there. You've made it. Give me a sense of maybe what exceeded your expectations, on the big show, and maybe some things that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I think. Scotty and I grew up playing a bunch together. We're the same age. So we played a lot of junior golf together. And kind of like he said, when I first got out here, I didn't really know what to expect. and it all just kind of seemed, it's just kind of a blur. I mean, everything just, you're living by weeks, and it's, you go to the West Coast and the Florida swing, and then you're just kind of all over the place.
And most of these courses you've never played.
Yeah, I don't know. I show up and I'm asking, Russell, hey, where's registration? And Russell's like, it's that way, duh. Like, I'm like, okay. No, Russell would be a lot nicer than that. But, it's just little things like that. You get to places now where I've been, 3 or 4 times, and I know where to go, and it just kind of, everything just settle in a little bit easier. What was the second part of your question?
No, honestly, anywhere you want to go, but what are some things that you've, over the last few years, how did you go from, okay, I'm out there, you had your first time, by the way, I did a little reconnaissance on this. You played with Tiger Woods. You guys was it third round? Was the first time you played with Tiger?
Sunday.
Well, it was Sunday, excuse me, it was Sunday. And there were 8 million people, as there always are, and Sam gets up there, and if he was nervous, he didn't show it, because you know what he said? He turns to Tiger, and I have this on good information. He turns to Tiger, and he says, my gosh, I cannot believe this many people have come out to watch me play.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, I just wanted to make him laugh. Like, I was so nervous. I was like, I just got to say something, even if it's stupid. Like, I don't really care. So, yeah, I did say that. But yeah, that's, that was also,
Well, what was that like?
Yeah,
I mean, you've grown up watching him play.
Yeah, I think, for, guys like us, that's, the guy we watched was Tiger, and Stewart, of course. Well, we did.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, but I mean, so, you get an opportunity to play with, your golf idol as a kid, and there's so many different things that go through your head, and I just remember how nervous I was, and I saw him in, in the locker room before. I was in there washing my hands, probably making sure I wasn't about to pass out, and I knew he was standing next to me. I could just feel it, and I was like, did I say something? Like, he doesn't know who I am, but obviously I know who he is, and it's like, hey, Tiger, I'm Sam. He's like, oh, yeah, we're playing together. I'm like, mm-hmm. And it's like, we have a mutual friend, like David Toms grew up in Shreveport, where I'm from, and so they knew each other, and so I told him that, whatever, and I remember walking out of there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be rough. Anyways, we go play, and I just, thank the Lord. He blessed me with a great round that day, because
He beat Tiger, by the way, that day.
Yeah.
He beat Tiger.
Yeah, and honestly, that was a great moment for me. I didn't have any status at that point. I was playing on sponsor exemptions, and so, top 10 to get into the following week, which was big. And yeah, I think, like Scottie said, still, first few years out here just trying to learn as much as I can. And, I'm incredibly thankful for these guys. Not only, to go to with golf stuff, but to know that they're strong believers, and, hey man, I'm struggling with something in my marriage, or I'm struggling with something in my faith. Like, can we talk about it? And they're always willing.
So, brother, thanks. That was awesome. Russell, you talked about this a little bit a few years ago when you were here with us, and you talked about how significant it was in terms of, because you've been kind of, this spiritual journey of yours has been of shorter duration than some of these guys, and how significant it was to find guys, because it's a lonely deal out there, and now all of a sudden you have this fraternity of sorts, always inclusive of anybody that's not part of the fraternity, but still guys like Sam's talking about that show you where the registration is, but much more than that. Tell us a little bit about who are some of those guys that have played a big role in your life, and what did that look like?
Guys on tour? And
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first guy I started hanging out with a lot once the Lord saved me was Webb Simpson. And Webb's been somebody I just, in terms of golf or life or marriage, like Sam was talking about, all those things, he's somebody I always try to bounce ideas off of. And so he was kind of the first guy. But Brad Payne, who's the president of CGF.
College Golf Fellowship,
Yep.
Great organization.
He officiated our wedding. He's kind of walked with me throughout, and just kind of, at first it was like, hey, come to the tour fellowship on Tuesday nights. And then it's like, hey, we're going to be reading a book, and Cameron Tringale is going to be there, and Stewart or Jonathan Burr. So there's Ryan Blom. There's just a lot of guys who are already kind of doing this thing on top of the tour fellowship, and then trying to go to their local church. And I just realized this isn't just like a Tuesday night snack time. This is like we're trying to get to know the Lord and just like be in community with one another. And
So Russ, did that give you, when you started that journey, did that free you up in ways that maybe not? I mean, because you used to talk, I think you talked a little bit about, it was so identity, it's so hard not to get your identity out of this game, because it will, I don't care how good you are, it will beat you up. At some point, things will turn down. You're going to miss some cuts, status, all that kind of stuff. Did that free you up? I mean, Jesus talked about abundant life and freedom and peace, and my peace I leave with you. Have you found that to be true? Is that maybe part of the resurgence in some ways?
I think so in some ways. I think I've just kind of started to put more time into every part of my job, and I think a lot of that is just becoming a dad and just kind of just feeling like I need to be a grown-up a little bit. I feel like when I was their age, I really didn't work as hard. My life was much more about me. It was really just kind of a train wreck, and thankfully I was good at golf. But other than that, it was not going well. And I think it's just wanting to kind of check all the boxes of, being a good dad, being a good husband, and leading my family well. And, working hard at my job is kind of one of those things.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So, Stewart, I want to ask you, I've kind of thought about this. I want to ask you, so you got two guys to your left, they're in their 20s. You got a guy to your right in his 30s. What would you tell the 20-something Stewart Cink that now that you're 48, what would you tell your 20-something Stewart Cink, and what would you maybe have told also your 30-something-year-old Stewart Cink?
I probably learned my best lesson on the golf course right here at the Phoenix Open my rookie year.
All right, we're anxious to hear this.
And I was probably about their age. I might have been a little bit younger. My rookie year, I was 23, so I was a little younger than them. And I played my first tournament at La Quinta.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Well, back then it was Indian Wells, so it was more in Palm, whatever that is.
Yeah, Palm Desert or
Palm Desert.
Indian Wells, yeah. Indian Wells.
And
yeah.
I finished high. I finished like top 10 in my first tournament as a tour member. It wasn't my first tournament ever, but it was my first as a member.
As a member.
Finished ninth, and I was a big shot. And I come here to the second tournament of the year, and I got paired with Jeff Sluman, who's at the time probably maybe not quite as old as I am, but maybe like 42 or 3. A veteran golfer for a long time.
Yeah, PGA championship winner, yeah.
And I'm just getting to know everybody and figuring out where registration is and stuff like that. And so I go out there the first day, and I'm about to set the world on fire. Just finished top 10 in my first tournament. I was rookie of the year on the what used to be the Nike Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, or player of the year before. And I go out there and throw about a 76 at him. And I acted like the biggest goober out there, like got mad and like didn't throw clubs, but slammed stuff and just acted like a baby. Jeff Sluman pulled me aside. I didn't know him very well.
Now you got to realize this is David and Goliath, because Jeff is half your size.
He literally is half of my size.
He's half of your size.
He probably
and twice
weighs
your
about
age and half your
130.
size. I mean,
and he pulls me aside after the round and said, "Stewie, don't sweat it. You're going to make a gazillion dollars playing golf out here." And that's all he said. Don't sweat it. And I think that's the advice I would tell them, and to a certain extent Russ. And by the way, I don't think Russ is a real train wreck. Your life doesn't look like a train wreck. I've seen a few train wrecks.
No. Before.
No, I knew you before too.
No.
We've seen train wrecks. This isn't one. So, but basically Jeff Sluman just kind of told me like, relax, dude. And so ever since then, I stopped acting that way. And I basically learned the lesson to put my heart in the right place. And that served me really well later in my career when focus is an issue and, things in your life just start to expand and flourish in different ways where golf isn't really the number one focus as much. I mean, it's still a priority for me for sure. But I've learned how to get my heart in the right place before I go play golf, before I hit shots, where I realize that I've got a lot more that brings me peace and joy in my life than where this next golf ball is going to go and what score I'm going to write down on this hole.
And you can feel that when you're around guys and you know they don't have that peace. I mean, you just know it. I don't care if you're playing in a pro-am and you've got some Fortune 500 guy and you go, he does not have that kind of peace. It's hard to describe, isn't it? I mean, really, it's hard to describe.
Well, it's hard to describe, except all you have to do is get out the New Testament and show the gospel of Jesus Christ. And at that point, it's really not hard to describe, because that is where we get our peace and our joy. And where the golf ball is not going to go where we want it to every time. But the golf ball may not go where we want to every time, but we know that Christ is going to be who he is every time. And he's never going to change.
So now, okay, he did make $1 gazillion, by the way. He's made over $43 million in his career. I did look that up. But as you look back over that, things that were tough. I mean, Lisa got a diagnosis a number of years back, right? And talk us through that. And that peace that surpasses understanding. What was that time like?
Well, the peace that surpasses understanding is probably one of the core verses that Lisa and I leaned on and still do, but especially right at the beginning when she was being diagnosed. And Lisa, by the way, is here. I don't know where.
Lisa, are you here? I didn't know that.
So my wife and my son Reagan, who is also my caddy. Reagan? He's caddy first, son second, most of the time. Yeah. They're out here somewhere. Yeah. They're both here. So, but yeah, Lisa, she got diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 4, at age 43.
Stage 4.
And that was 2016. And, it came as to say that was a surprise in our family would be like the biggest understatement of my life. And so, but the lean not on your understanding, the verse was one of our core verses that we constantly went to. And I learned a ton just being near her and seeing how she navigated through that part of her life at that time. And it's by no means over at all. She's in the middle of it. So it evolves, but yeah, she's taught me a whole lot just by being a bystander and experiencing her going through everything since then. And it's been now, she'll be 6 years down from her diagnosis now in April.
Awesome. So Scottie, new to the tour, get selected for the Ryder Cup. We know the build up to the Ryder Cup these last, really since the Faldo and Bernhard Langers and all that, and Stewart's been on the wrong end of a few Ryder Cups. What was that like getting selected? And take us through any maybe an insider story at Ryder Cup Experience, what that meant to you, and then give us a little inside scoop.
Yeah, playing on the Ryder Cup team was, something I dreamed about since I was a kid. As long as I could.
So for 5 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I really don't know exactly what to say about it. It still hasn't really sunk in that that's something that, I've done, I guess. I think it's kind of weird, like always dreaming of playing on the PGA Tour and playing in these tournaments and accomplishing these things, and me now having a small taste of what it is like to be on tour. Like, life doesn't feel any different. If that makes sense.
Well, it's kind of people don't understand that out here. It's hard for me to understand. Life doesn't feel that different. How so?
If for instance, if I went home and my wife didn't like me,
Meredith, right?
Yeah, Meredith, she's around somewhere too. But
hey, Meredith.
I hope she still likes me. But if when you go home at the end of the day, you still got to look yourself in the mirror. You still got to live your life. And being out on tour is almost it's significantly different than my friends at home, because I live basically 2 different lives. And I spend half of my time here on the road and half of our time at home. And it's kind of strange because you just have these 2 totally separate different worlds. And finding community out on the road was extremely important to me right as I got out on tour, just finding a good group of people to spend our time with and just to be in community with and get to know the Lord. And, I've had, some of my best friends, Sam being one of them, just out here on tour. And if I was out here traveling by myself like I was when I played the Corn Ferry Tour and, just kind of messing around, life would be, a lot different. And having, worldly success doesn't really change, how, we view ourselves or view different people. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And I think sometimes when you get like a little taste of some success, I think you realize that it just doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. Well, I got to be honest, just as an interested spectator, you were out of the gates at the Ryder Cup. It didn't appear like you were out of your element. It didn't appear like you were nervous. It didn't. I mean, you came right out of the gate. I mean, you had to be having some nerves, and I think even maybe Stewart can even speak to this too. Maybe as a selection, it's got to even be. Maybe you feel maybe a little added weight, or no, or you just free. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No, Sam and I can talk about this. This is something that's pretty cool in our friendship. It was towards the end of last season, Sam and I were kind of going for what it looked like was there was 4 guys for 2 spots, basically on the last 2 spots on the Ryder Cup team. And Sam and I basically stay together more than half the time on the road. Our wives are very close. We're very close. And so, we were both going after that together, and it was, it definitely weighed on both of us at the end of the year. It was pretty difficult. Just there's so much emphasis and pressure, and you've dreamed of this stuff for so long. It's really weird. And to have a friend to go through that with was great, but then the way that the selection process worked out, that's something that could become really weird between us. It could be, very different, and Sam's extremely gracious, and he's a great friend and extremely supportive of me, and, I think he just gets that peace and that comfort from knowing the Lord so well. And so to have a friend out there on tour that, really has my best interest and I have his as well, I mean, it's really cool, because if it was somebody else on tour that maybe didn't know the Lord as well and didn't know me as well, it would be kind of weird going after something like that together. But when we're such great friends, I think it really spoke a lot to our friendship and relationship with the Lord.
Well, Scottie, I mean, and maybe you can speak to this too. So, I mean, we've had Pertzer up here. I've done this, I don't know, for 2 decades in different places. And some of the old school guys, they're saying, you just didn't really have that many friends out on tour. I mean, it was competitive. It was dog eat dog. And sometimes they've called it soft. Some of these young guys waiting around on the green, 10 guys waiting for a guy to win and all that kind of thing. I'm talking about in the last 20, I'm talking old school guys. And it's different, but it's not really a sign of weakness. It's a sign of, it seems like a profound strength and contentment out there. Sam, have you felt that? I mean,
I can assure you, whenever we're playing, we want to beat each other.
No, I'm not saying that. Trust me.
Whether it's Tuesday morning or Sunday afternoon.
But
it's more fun to beat your friends.
Yes.
Yeah, I do understand that. I know we're not singing Kumbaya out there, but there are guys that love seeing you win. I mean, you won twice. You had guys that were out there that you beat that loved seeing you win. I know that.
I think that's like Scottie was saying, the interesting thing is, in our, hopefully God willing gives us, careers like Stewart's that are, you're out here for a long time. But, throughout that, we're both going to have different things in our career that maybe one of us does and one of us doesn't. And so that's just the nature of our friendship, and that's the nature of our job. And so just being able to share in that success or in the hard times together and just, work through it with each other. And like you said, our wives are really close, which is awesome. And so just knowing that, was that really hard for me? Of course. But at the same time, we were so excited for Scottie. Like, I know that was a dream of mine too, and I know it was a dream of his. And so just being able to share in that and just being like, man, this is so cool for him and Meredith, and, for them to have this experience, and hopefully one day we get to experience it together.
That's so good. That's so good. So, Stewart, I'm not skipping you, Russ. I'll come back. But when I think about Stewart Cink, I think about a lot of things. And the first things I think about are not the British Open, but I think of a godly man. I think of a guy that loves his family. I think of a guy that's just been really a paragon for a lot of guys out on tour. It's just amazing. But I do I think about the British Open. I think about the extraordinary tournament you had, and that other than maybe Lisa and Reagan and Stu Young, but I mean, everybody was pulling for Watson. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but that is crazy. I mean, you had a 59-year-old man that you were in a playoff with for the British Open, and you had to know that the world was pulling for this. This is the ultimate Rudy. This is Hoosiers. This is everybody combined, and you're the villain in a way. You're the only thing that can hold us back from this fantasy of this, this Watson winning at 59. Describe what that was like, but then also the beauty of it, and just can you take us through that a little bit?
Well, I never really thought of it like that.
I'm so sorry. Well, on behalf of the world, this is how we felt. I mean, I loved you. I was pulling for you right up until the time. I was like, but how can you not be pulling for a 59-year-old guy? Because I'm 58 now, and I'm thinking, I can imagine playing you in a playoff, right?
Well, I remember that day on the back nine, Tom Watson being up at the top or near the top of the leaderboard that day helped me a lot because my mind was also focused on that. And it kept me distracted from what I was doing in between shots.
Explain. Your mind was focused on the...
Well, it's easy when you're in contention of any tournament, but especially a major, you get wrapped up in what's going on towards the end of the tournament, and the person who handles that the best usually wins. And everybody handles it differently. That day, Tom Watson being involved helped me handle it in a way that I was able to kind of stay relaxed, and I was focused on something else besides making a bogey here and there. I think I made 3 bogeys on the back nine. We played hard. I shot 2 under par for the tournament. It played hard. But I made 3 bogeys on the back nine. Usually that doesn't happen to the winner, but I made some birdies too.
Yes, you did.
And because none of those bogeys crushed me, because I was paying attention to Tom Watson. I'd hit a shot and be like, what'd Tom do? Hit it, make a bogey, what'd Tom do? Hit it tight, make a birdie, what's Tom doing? I was focused on something else. And so it actually kind of ironically helped me a lot that day. And then when it became the playoff and it was just the 2 of us, I had to also recognize that the world was going to be pulling for Tom. And I knew that. And it actually helped me too, just to be ready for it. In fact, when I was out there they played number 5, 6, 17, and 18 in the playoff. And in the crowd that day, I saw my very good friend, one of my best friends, Justin Leonard, and my very good friend and mentor and Ryder Cup captain, Tom Lehman, in the crowd out there watching our playoff. You think he was out there, those guys were out there with their families watching me? They were out there because they wanted to say, I was there the day Tom Watson won the playoff and won the British Open. So, but I was ready for all that, and I knew, and I chuckled a little bit, and I still think it's hilarious, and I talked to those guys about it. But that's the mentality I had. Like, it wasn't me versus the world. I just felt like I got to be ready for everybody to want Tom to win. Just be prepared, because I'm going to hear, polite golf fans, especially in the UK, they know their stuff. They're going to applaud for my shots. They're going to respectfully, give me what I am due for good shots. But for Tom, they were roaring. I mean, they were somersaults for Tom Watson.
Well, I mean, he's a fixture. He's at British Open. He won 5 times or something?
He won 5, yeah.
He already won 5 British Opens and was going to add one at 59. I mean, to some degree, my heart still goes out for you, but you seem like you've handled it well.
Don't. Do not feel sorry for me. Do not feel sorry.
Do not pity
I
me.
never let that bother me 1 second. And the next day, the newspaper headlines was Shrek of the Links. That was my nickname, because I had a green shirt on and a green hat.
I got to tell you, Nike could have done something a little bit better for you on that day, but anyway.
I was just overjoyed that I won the British Open.
You won the British Open. That is awesome.
Thanks. See, none of them were rooting for Tom Watson.
Oh, man. That was just Lisa applauding. It was nobody else. So Russ, you had a little playoff earlier this year, right? The Sony. You've had some good Sonys, right? What is it about the course you like? And take us through the playoff a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I guess I lived in Charleston for 7 years, so I played a Seth Rayner course down there, Country Club of Charleston. And so when I would go to the Sony, it just kind of felt like I was playing a very similar course, all Bermuda grass, and it was just a little bit better weather. So I always love going there. And the course is really fun, and I've had some success there, obviously. And so, the playoff was cool. I really thought I'd actually won the tournament because halfway there on a putt on 18, I thought it was in, and I lipped it out. And so I was kind of like, man, like tough to keep the momentum going, I guess. But, you know, Hideki hit two of probably one of the best shots, if not the best shot in the playoff.
One of the best shots I've
history,
ever seen, for sure.
which was tough to be on the other side of. But I'm just really thankful to be playing well and to have a chance to win on the 18th hole and lip it out. You know, I feel like that's a really great week on the PGA Tour. It's really hard to do, and so I'm just thankful for that.
And there was, I can tell. Okay, hang on for a second. We got a good Russell story from Mr. Burns about a playoff story for Russ.
Well, it's really just, Russ would never say this because he's such a humble guy, but so last summer, Russ was leading the U.S. Open through maybe 36 or 54 holes, and I had departed that Friday. Was not leading the golf tournament, and so I was, paying attention and watching, and I remember they did an interview with them on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, I can't remember. And they asked him, why do you feel like you have an advantage, or what advantage do you feel like you have, if any, going into the weekend or going into Sunday? Because, Torrey Pines is a long golf course. It's, a bomber's paradise type place, and Russ doesn't necessarily bomb it. He gets it out there, but he doesn't bomb it. But they asked Russ the question, and he answers. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't know exactly what he said, but he said, I don't really necessarily need to win. And, I think I understood what he meant by it. I think a lot of people probably didn't really understand. But I remember, later, maybe 2 months later, we were in Memphis for the WGC, and Sunday afternoon, didn't think I had a chance to be in a playoff, ended up getting into a playoff, ultimately lost in the playoff. But I remember, just thinking about that interview that Russell did, like, over and over in my head while we were in the playoff, like, thankfully, like, I don't need this to, validate who I am, or we don't need this to validate who we are as people. Ultimately we're sons of Jesus, sons of Christ. And so just a really cool story, and something that I've always looked up to for Russell saying that.
So, Sam, have you, I was talking to Randy Wolf, LSU alum, went on, played the tour. He's watching here tonight from Texas with Bill Rogers, another British Open champion. They're watching together. And he said that your coach at LSU said, Sam, talking about your faith, infected the whole team. Infected the whole team.
I don't know about that in college.
Well, no, I mean, none of us are saints in college, but I mean, you get the point. I mean, he was making a statement that your faith was, at least you were vocal about your faith, even in college.
Probably could have been putting on a front. If I could go back, there's a lot of things I would do differently. But I would say, really, I grew up in a Christian home, and would have said that I was a believer. But I don't think I really knew, like, what that meant. I probably knew, the right things to say or the right way to act in front of certain people. But, thankfully, a lot of that sin was revealed to me. And
okay, well, let's talk about that. So there's people out here, there's people watching. They're like, what is he talking about? I have no idea what he's talking about. I mean, they may feel religious. They may feel completely irreligious. What was that moment? Was there a moment like Stewart's, hitting it two up and, getting a different launch angle? And was there a moment that occurred? Talk to us
Yeah,
about
so, Russ was talking about Brad Payne, travels with the tour a lot, and kind of our, mentor and somebody that, I've walked through my faith with, and, me and my wife, he married us. I remember it was maybe 3 years ago, 3 years ago, we were in LA next week. And I just texted Brad, I'm like, hey man, I need to talk to you. So he comes out on, like 11th hole and on like a Tuesday morning, and, I'm kind of walking him through like what's been going on and what's been going on in my life. And I just said, I don't really understand, why I do these things. Like, well, I don't understand why, I would hurt somebody that I love so much, or that I would make that decision. He just kind of looks at me and goes, well, you're a sinner. And I was like, huh. Yeah. I never really thought about it, I guess you're right. So we just kind of walked through that, like, as believers, we're all broken people in need of a Savior, and that's what I was. I needed a Savior, and I would have said that I was a believer, and I would have said that, like I said earlier, I knew what that meant, but I wasn't living it. And so that was just really a wake-up call, the wake-up call for me, and I'm thankful that day happened.
And that's a hard hole, Riviera, 11th hole. Scottie, you want to add anything to that? I mean, has there been a moment for you, like a particular moment that stands out to you that was kind of like, that shifted you from one direction to another? Because it's a directional shift. It's not like, hey, we go to church kind of thing.
Yeah. I would say for me, I never had one of those moments where, like, the Lord just took my heart all at once. For me, when I got to college, it was really my first time being all alone. And Meredith, my wife, we started dating in high school, and we actually broke up because we went to different schools. And so then, I'm in Austin, she's in College Station, and all of a sudden I truly feel alone. Like, I don't really know many people at college. It's a big school, trying to learn how to play golf and take these classes and do all these different things. And for me, I just felt truly alone and didn't know what to do. And one of Meredith's friends actually started taking me to church, and I kind of did this thing where I was like, all right, Lord, I'll give you this little piece. It's like, all right, I'll give you a little piece here. And just gradually with time, he just started taking over my heart. And I can just start feeling that peace and that comfort and, really changing me from within. And now every Sunday when I'm in church, I'm like, please take it over. Like, I suck, and the whole deal.
I suck in Jesus' name.
Yes. But that's really what it feels like. You sit there and, I need a Savior. And I think that's probably one of the coolest things about our faith is recognizing your need for a Savior.
So would you guys, I'll never forget it, maybe I've even brought it up here at Tales before, but Tom Lehman's been with us a number of times and done a number of things with Tom, but Tom told a story, but he concluded it with, the reason I follow Jesus is because I find myself being a hypocrite. I don't follow Jesus because I'm a great guy. I follow him because and what he was saying, I think, if I can put words in his mouth, is that I'm aspiring to be this, and I find myself, even as a follower, coming up so short, so often, and that Jesus makes up that difference. Is that fair to say, Russ? I mean, because you talked about train wreck, and of course, Stewart's saying, no, I've seen train wrecks, but.
Well, he doesn't know how I treated a bunch of people in college and when I was younger, but I think that the longer you are a Christian, the longer I've been a Christian, the more you see your sin, and I think the more you realize your need for a Savior. You're in need of a relationship with Jesus, and I think the more you have success for us on the golf course, and the more you have failure on the golf course, the different ways sin tries to grab you and persuade you, the more you realize you need Jesus, you need a Savior, and you are sinful. You're a sinner, Sam. We're all sinners. But that's the great thing about Christianity. It puts us all in the same boat, and we're all in need, whether you know it or not. And I think that's a really freeing place to be, and that's what I found is, yes, I see more of my sin and the nasty, side of me the longer I understand, what this gospel means, but the more grace I receive. So it's a cool picture.
Thanks, Russ. So, Stewart, somebody watching, somebody out here in the audience tonight, and they're thinking, you know what? I just don't know if I can believe, but maybe the reason I've chosen not to believe is because I thought if this power, this God, this creator, this divine mind out there, if he's real, and I admit it, then he's certainly not going to like me. What would you say to that person who's watching tonight? What would you say to that person who's saying, I just think I've just gone way too far. You don't know the trials I've been through, right?
Well, the first thing I would tell that person is to put the measuring stick away. because there's no reason for us to measure ourselves, because to what end? All we're going to do is find out that we don't measure up if we measure. And that's all we really do. I mean, am I alone and I'm talking to everybody out here, am I the only one in this room right now that constantly feels like I don't measure up? Can I get a show of hands out there? Thank you. Okay. Well, that's what I would say to that person. And Christ offers a free gift to us through no goodness of our own, because we don't have a lot of it. A free gift to us to come to a place where we do measure up, because he measures up for us. And to me, that just gives me the ultimate peace, the ultimate contentment. And it goes back to what Sam said about not needing to win. You don't need to perform better than your coworkers. You don't need to even outperform your fellow students or live up to what your parents want for you. If you have Jesus, you've already been given everything that you need to do to measure up, because he is your measuring stick now. And so that to me just, it happened like I described to you my 30 seconds, the journey from 30 seconds to a better launch angle. Okay, I know that's just a bunch of boring
I
golf
can just
stuff.
tell you, you and I can go into business. 30 seconds, I changed and gained 15 yards. We can sell that, brother.
We could.
6-minute abs, 30 seconds for 15
I
yards.
may try that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, I've already played with everybody here in this room, or up here on the stage anyway, and they don't need the extra
They don't
15
need
yards.
any. I do, brother.
Yeah, we do.
Well,
Yeah,
Russ
we
could use maybe about 6. But for me, I remember I didn't really grow up in a Christian home like Scottie said he did. I grew up in a church-going home. Sometimes we hit the highlights, Easter, Christmas.
CEO Christians, right?
Yeah,
Christmas and Easter
I
only.
didn't. I don't think I really knew where there was a Bible in my house growing up. But when I got married to my wife Lisa, we got married pretty young, and we had our first child in college, really young, and we got an early start to our adulthood, like it or not. At 20, we started, and she did grow up in a Christian home, and I promise you, she knew where her Bible was. And so, for me, just that. Sort of seeing what that life looked like and experiencing, somebody who understood a little bit of obedience. That changed me, along with Jesus pulling on me. And until it wasn't a 30-second journey. For me, it only took me from 20 to about 26. Only about 6 years to get to this point, where I was in church one day with her parents out in a little town in Alabama. And the pastor was telling the story of the gospel about Jesus dying on the cross for us and for our sins, and taking our sins onto him, and basically removing the barrier between us and God through sin, that the barrier that sin represents. And I heard that story my whole life, but I never heard it like that, and it never got inside my heart, and I never understood it. And all of a sudden, I had this clarity about it. And I don't know why. I don't think it was that I was more mature. I don't think that having our kids early helped me understand it better. I just think that God spoke to me and just was telling me, like, this is the story that I've been telling you the whole time. All you got to do is listen and accept it.
Well, look, as we wind this down, I'll give these guys a chance to say any closing remarks. People that have been around me know the Hubble telescope was amazing, right? And now that we've sent up the Webb telescope, that's going to give us 100 times more clarity into the cosmos. I was meeting with a guy the other day, and he said, our universe is so large, we are so insignificant, that there's this God and this and the creator of all that. I mean, think about it. I mean, you cannot wrap your mind around, again, let me go through it. Light travels 186,000 miles a second. Light will travel 6.2 trillion miles, 186,000 miles a second in 1 year. And to get across our known universe would take light 93 billion years to get across our known universe. I mean, you cannot wrap your head around that, right? 100,000 light years just to get across our galaxy, the Milky Way, and there are over now 2 trillion galaxies, and heaven knows what we're going to find. Somehow, when you go to bed tonight, you've still got to factor in that, is that cosmic chance, or is there a divine mind? And I think the farther science moves along, the closer we get to understanding design. Then you've got to say, what began it? It cannot be cosmic chance. And what these men up here are saying is that they've met that divine mind through the person of Jesus. It answers the question of first cause. Something had to be outside of time and space to get this whole bang started, right? I mean, we're sitting here talking about chasing a white ball around. Relative to that, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. You put the earth on that spectrum, this is pretty small, right? I was thinking of James, and he's writing in the Bible, and he says, you know, the grass withers and the flower fades, and a rich man will do the same in the midst of his pursuits. We're all pursuing something, right? And yet it's gone. You know, Frank Beard, 11 times on the PGA Tour. You walk up and down, and anybody under probably 40 years old, they don't have any idea who Frank Beard is. 11 times he won on the tour, leading money winner one year. He won $168,000 or something. It was crazy. It was true. 11 times. So when you guys say, and I'll just make a closing remark, when you say that, you know, God spoke to me, or, you know, I'm Jesus, or, you know, it's not, some people may, I don't want people to leave going, it's community, or it just helps them. It's like their crutch on the tour. You've met a person, right, Sam? I mean, that moment, you met a person. Brad's helped you walk and learn about that person. Is that fair to say? Anything you want to add to that?
What we got, guys? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put it on you, brother.
You're good.
No, think about it a little bit on that.
For me, when I was growing up, I always thought God was this like far away thing that just was there and was kind of like the overwatcher. Like he just kind of watched over and was controlling little things here and there. And
That's good.
He might be real, he might not be real, you know. And in college, that's when I really felt like Stewart says, like, you feel a change when he kind of takes hold of you. And there's so much peace, there's so much comfort, and he's real. And he's there, he loves us, and he cares about us, and he has our best interests. And, you know, he's always reaching out for us. I always think that book we read, Gentle and Lowly, I always think there was an analogy in that book that it was imagining a father and son walking into the ocean, the son being like a 1-year-old baby and, you know, the dad being my age or whatever. And you're walking into the ocean and we're the baby holding the hand of our father. And as the baby, we're holding on to the father as hard as we possibly can. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, we're just holding on for dear life, like whatever we can do just to hold on to him. But in reality, he's the one just holding on to us, and he's always right there, and he's always present, and he's always hanging on to us, and he never goes away. And for me, that was, you know, really all I needed to hear about Jesus, that he's not going anywhere.
And Scottie, that is for you. That is an experience. It's not a concept. It's an experience. I mean, when you were at Texas and you were feeling lonely, he filled that gap, right?
Yeah, he said, I'm here. I'm real. And I have a plan for you, and I mean, that's really all I needed to hear, basically.
Yeah, anybody else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, you know, whenever we often, all of us tend to put, you know, we put our hope in, you know, things that we do, whether it's golf or being a good husband or business or whatever it is. You know, like Stewart was saying earlier, we try to measure up to those things and put our, you know, our trust in ourselves or what we're capable of. You know, those things always let us down. Golf, you know, always lets me down. You know, it's never good enough, or I can never strive enough. So I think whenever I realize that, like, you know, putting our hope in Jesus, you know, he never lets us down. He's constant. He loves us unconditionally. And like that picture Scottie was talking about of him, just, you know, he's present and he's there. He's holding us up. Because without that, you know, we're dead in our sin. So I think it's just a really cool thing, and like Scottie was saying, you know, whenever you feel that, he just grabs you. It's a peace that it's hard to even put in words.
Powerful. Russ, anything to add to that?
Well said, guys. Yeah,
But it was relational for you, right? I mean, Russ, you sensed something was different. I mean, you train wreck, and then it wasn't just a concept, right?
Yeah, I think just for me, seeing how I was so far away from peace and learning that just the state I was in of sin and seeing that Jesus was not a rule book. Christianity wasn't a rule book, and seeing that it's a relationship, and seeing how Jesus treated people, and just really understanding the full picture by going through the Gospels and reading good books and stuff like that. That made me have a clear understanding of just the gospel. And I think no matter who you are or what you're doing or where you are in your life, I think deep down, I think a lot of people today, they always talk about how they just want to be happy. I think everybody just wants peace. And I can tell you that I don't care where you are, I don't think you're going to find peace with anything, like from anything in this world, and anything earthly. I think you're going to find it through knowing Jesus. And so that'd be what I would.
That's so good, brother. You're so proud of you.